He's also the most useful character. He helps Alice out more than Yvonne, who spends all her time bitching, yelling and calling people crazy, and he's the one to discover that Amanda is still caught in the mortal realm. The movie briefly mentions that he was in love with Greta and that the loss of her made him more hell-bent on taking out Freddy. It's a shame this wasn't explored a little more because it adds a little more depth to him. He also seems to have a few insecurities, as he talks about how his own comic book character, the Phantom Prowler, is more man than he is and wouldn't be afraid to tell her how he felt. But when the chips are down, he turns out to have just as much guts as his own hero. It's a shame he gets the movie's goofiest dream sequence, but once again I'll get back to that later. Alice is a huge disappointment. Admittedly, I never liked the character that much in the beginning, but you'd think after profoundly kicking Freddy's ass the last time and acquiring a shitload of dream powers, she wouldn't spend the entire movie running around scared. Sure, she gets one or two kick-ass moments, but they're small and very far between. She's really just a screaming, terrified damsel here, and that's why it's a shame she's the only one to survive 2 movies. This movie could have established her as a sort of hero character, sort of like Tommy Jarvis in Friday the 13th. That could have been interesting and maybe lead up to a better sequel than Freddy's Dead, which just ignored all of this anyway. In fact, when you think about it, this must mean she was killed off-screen between this one and Freddy's Dead. You would think we'd at least see Freddy get revenge on the woman who kicked his ass twice, and with the help of a baby the second time nonetheless. As per usual for this franchise, pretty much all the adults are horrible dicks, save for Alice's father, who spent the 4th film as an abusive alcoholic. In this movie, however, he's recovering and does all he can to make up for his mistakes, and that's very nice to see. The rest of them are still a bunch of almost downright hostile jerks. Hell, Dan's parents even try to take away Alice's baby by telling her that she's obviously unfit, it is their grandchild, and they can afford lawyers while she can't. But this gives her dad his crowning moment of awesome when he tells them to back the fuck off and leave his daughter alone. It's so nice to see a likable adult in the series just for once. The rest of the bunch are forgettable. Yvonne's a bitch and Dan doesn't really do much before he dies. But all in all, we get more likable main characters than usual. Unfortunately, the good ones don't get enough screen time and are killed far too quickly, while we have to suffer through Yvonne's y'all crazy bullshit the entire time. I wouldn't have given a flying fuck if she'd been the dust. So it gets a plus for its characters and a big ass minus for its treatment of them, giving us a boring protagonist and killing off the interesting side characters.
Oh shit.
Ah, the dream scenes, the one thing we all come to see when we watch this series. I'm not gonna lie, the dream scenes in this one are awesome. For the most part anyway. At least they're far more creative than part 6 and a whole lot more serious than in part 4 where we get Freddy with shades and a little bit of kung fu fighting. There are plenty of fairly freaking moments to find here, and even though Freddy retains his new wisecracking jokester persona, it's not quite as groan-inducing this time around. Though there are some scenes where it's too much, such as Dan's dream scene. Otherwise an incredibly cool special effects romp that fuses him with a motorbike, it quickly gets tedious to hear Freddy not even make actual puns but just shouting random driving related lines.
Fuel injection!
Bad joke! Unfortunately, Mark gets the one dream scene in this movie that is as goofy and ridiculous as in the 4th movie. Yes, I get it, he draws comic books, so of course his dream has to be comic book related, but really, just look at this. Freddy runs around in the black and white for a bit. So far, awesome. But check this out. Mark, out of nowhere, turns into his own character, the Phantom Prowler, and blasts the shit out of Freddy. Silly, but nonetheless kind of awesome. And that's when Freddy retaliates with this piece of shit.
Faster than a bastard maniac. More powerful than a loco madman. It's Super Freddy.
Really? Super Freddy? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna have a brawl with Super Spencer? No, seriously, this one just irritates me. Especially since the black and white setting could have made it a great way to do a noir-style kill. The Prowler is hardly a colorful superhero, so why the hell would you take him out as one? And just look at this. He turns Mark into a paper cutout and tears him to shreds. This is the guy who was afraid to look at blood in one of the first scenes. How the hell do you not use that in death scene, you idiots? To be honest though, there's one of these dream scenes that always manages to freak me the hell out. Greta's. Just get this. During dinner time with her bitch of a mother, Freddy suddenly runs in and force feeds Greta to death. Sure, she looks hilarious with those hamster cheeks, but this part where Alice opens her fridge gets me every time I watch this. Oh god, that's freaky! I don't even really know why this one gets to me as much as it does. You know, I think there's only one way to deal with this little trauma of mine. Watching it again with unfitting music.
It's living in the fridge. You can't stop rainbow from growing. Living in the fridge. Can't tell what it is at all. Living in the fridge.
Sweet, sweet therapy. So we have an alright idea for a story that could have used a little tweaking. We have some good characters that go underdeveloped, and we have a boring as hell heroine. But what about the acting? Well, as usual, Robert Englund is just fucking flawless. He steals every scene he's in and manages to get just as many creepy moments as funny ones, which is an ability I've always admired him for. But for as much as I did like the rest of the characters, the problem is that none of the actors managed to portray them very well. And if the dialogue wasn't clunky enough, it's often delivered shakily, and some of it is just awful.
You're just a little pregnant.
And you're gonna be just a little dead if you say that one more time! Especially Alice irritates me. She's good enough at looking afraid, sure, but everything else is lackluster. It's hard to feel any kind of sympathy when your method of acting is having wide eyes when you say something. Like it wasn't already irritating enough that she doesn't get to actually play the heroine part. And the kid... Oh god, the kid. When we first saw him, I gotta admit I liked him. He was mysterious, he had those sad eyes, and he said some strange things. But at the end, when he has to fight Krueger...
School's out, Cougar.
Oh, look at him. He looks like an ad for some toy line, like, my burned best friend. I don't know what the hell possessed the makers of this to give him Freddy's scars and have him try to growl, but they sure fucked it up big time. Isn't he supposed to be a good guy? Sure, his powers have an evil source, but that would have been a lot more badass if he kept his calm attitude and his normal appearance. That right there was just deliciously goofy. I laugh every time I see it. So in conclusion, the Dream Child is sort of a mixed bag. It has a good premise, it has creative dream scenes and great special effects, but it focuses too much on boring characters and the acting is pretty damn bad. And as for Freddy, he's defeated way too easily this time. What, the boy tells him to fuck off and his mom spanks him? Please, he's basically shaping reality at this point. Give the guy something to do. This movie just gives me mood swings, you know? One moment I think, hey, this is awesome, and the next I go, this is the most awful thing ever! Why is that?
You're just a little pregnant.
Oh, that's it, you're fucking dead! This is horrible horror, and apparently, I'm gonna have to choke a bitch.
Good night, Demon Slayer, good night. Now it's time to close your tired eyes. There are devils to slay and dragons to ride. If they see you coming, hell, they better hide. Good night, good night, good night. Good night, my little slayer, good night. Tell the monster that eats children that you taste bad. And you're sure you'd be the worst he's ever had. If he eats you, don't you fret. just cut him open with an axe. Don't regret it, he deserved it. He's a cad.